Welcome to Good Burger Reviews. My name is John, and I'm here to review a brand new 2026 movie, and that movie is Dolly!
Oh no.
Someone's art project, maybe?
All the way out here?
That's weird.
Your new doll.
This movie was released in March of 2026. It is directed by Rod Blackhurst. It stars Fabian Therese, Russ Tiller, Kate Cobb, Sean William Scott, and Max the Impaler as Dolly. Basic premise. Macy, a young woman, is abducted by a monstrous figure intent on raising her as their own child. Well, I'm just out of the theater from Dolly, and I'll say this. Attention, gorehounds. This one is bloody disgusting, completely bonkers, wild, and insane. And this is a blend of so many movies, but the main movie I think of is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets Hostel. I also think of many of Rob Zombie's movies like House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects. A little bit of Deliverance, and maybe just a little bit of Dolly Dearest. So let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly on Dolly, because there's a lot to unpack on this one. So in the positives, I will definitely put, well, the gore. I mean, it is gory. It is tension-filled. It is bloody. There are severed limbs, bloody corpses, and of course, bizarre dollies. I'll tell you what, the amount of dolls that they had to get to put in this movie, it must be a record. I've never seen so many dolls. Now, when I did my anticipating movies a couple weeks back, I thought this was going to be an Annabelle, because on the picture that was on IMDb was just like a doll, like a little dolly, and I thought, okay, here we go, Annabelle ripoff. Well, this is no Annabelle ripoff. In fact, I'll put it in the positive. This, what it really is a ripoff of, is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because the dolly in this movie is a giant. Well, I'm assuming the character is a woman, but it's definitely a man. I listed it in the IMDb review, part of the review, that it was Max the Impaler. But I wasn't sure, because the character itself, Dolly, is supposed to be a woman. They refer to her as Mother, but as you never see the face. So it's like all you see is this dolly mask. And the dolly mask totally reminded me of like Leatherface, but like imagine if Leatherface decided to go out one night and drag, because it's in a dress. It's a dolly. It's a dolly face, but there's like hints of Leatherface in the shape of this mask. The character itself is the size of Leatherface. The way the character moves and operates is like Leatherface, and some of the things that this character does is also like Leatherface. It was also giving me that House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, like that whole franchise with Rob Zombie. I mean, this had whoever made this obviously had a Rob Zombie, has liked the way Rob Zombie's made movies, but also likes the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I felt like there was another character in this movie who was called Father, who I felt like was straight up out of any of Rob Zombie's movies, mainly House of a Thousand Corpses. And I felt like that character was amazing. Now, I feel like even though that character, Father, has kind of a small role, when he has his role, he was pretty impressive. I really liked what he did. He was probably, of all the acting of all the characters in this, he was probably the best. Now, not to take away from our final girl's acting, played by Fabian Therese, the main girl, the final girl, her acting was decent enough. I felt like her character, and we'll bring up her character in other sections of this video, made a lot of poor choices. Another thing I'll put in the positives is overall the setting. It pretty much, we're in the woods for a good portion of it. You know, they're on a hiking trail, and then in the woods are tons of dollies, tons of music, like little music boxes playing, and then of course there's the house that they end up in, and the house itself also was a really neat setting. The front of the house was scary as hell. The inside of the house had a weird flavor to it. It was kind of cozy mixed with kind of sadistic all in one, because again, this movie's called Dolly. The main character is dressed up as a dolly and obsessed with tons of dollies because there's dolls everywhere, and they're in the house as well. I feel like this movie had all the old school tropes down, like the characters are kind of dumb, the police are really dumb, or the one police character, he was dumb. He was so dumb, but to the point that it was kind of really comical. I don't remember the character's name. Let's just call him Special Officer Doofy, because that's kind of what he looked like when he rolled up on the scene.
Special Officer Doofy reporting. Hey, Doofy, smaller fingers.
And he has a very hilarious moment, and he just, like, talk about a dumb police officer. And I wasn't sure where they were going with him, because he shows up in the third act, so I don't want to elaborate too much of what happens with him, but he was really special with the way he was, like, he sees our final girl all bloody in one spot, and he's like, looks at her like she's really messed up, and he's like, oh, are you okay? I'm like, hello. Of course she's like extremely messed up, on the verge of death. She needs help. You need to put her in a car and let's go. But it just was, it was more comical in that part. And then the last thing that I'll put in the positives is just the overall tension. The way this is directed, the way what our character goes through, it was just so tense. And it wasn't like populated with tension, then followed by a jump scare. There were some jump scares. It seemed like there was just more tension, and sometimes a jump scare would come and sometimes not. And that's always cool, because that keeps the tension going when it doesn't always pop that quickly. Another thing that I'll put in the positives is definitely the music. So, like, the music was phenomenal, actually. I really, really liked it. It kind of was giving me the vibe of Smile. I watched the thing on Smile, how they use, like, a lot of items, like not actual instruments, but items or things that they use to make noises, and which was the entire soundtrack to Smile. And I felt like the sounds were similar. I mean, there was a decent melodic part, which was pretty scary, which was kind of reminiscent of The Conjuring. But then there was other parts where it was just like squealing sounds, or like high-pitched turning notes. I felt like the music was done quite well in this one.
Oh my God.
What the hell is wrong with you?
And I'll let that bring me to what I'm mixed on, because sometimes the tension was really great, but like it seemed like with Dolly, this character, like it didn't talk. So like whenever she would kind of jump, there would be this like loud bang of like music. Also in the mix, I'm going to put Seann William Scott. We know him from the original Final Destination movie. He was also in a boatload of comedies, including all the American Pies. He played Stifler. And because I just really remember him as comedy, and this isn't like Hugh Grant leaving comedy to come into horror. This felt different, especially since the way Seann William Scott's comedy was in the movies that he was in. So I felt like it was kind of jarring to see him try and be serious, because he was goofy silly. This is like Will Ferrell trying to be serious. It's just, some of these comedy actors are diverse, and I feel like some of them are not. So unfortunately, in this one, Sean William Scott I couldn't take him seriously. The other thing I'm mixed on is just the extremity of violence and gore in this one. So like, I am not like a big gore hound. I do like some gore, and I mean, I put the special effects on this, in the positives, but I felt like in this one, it's so extreme to just be unsettling, disturbing for like shock value type. And I felt like not only that, but like these killers, these whatever they are that are in the woods, it's kind of like a captive thing, and it's very like they really torture the girl. And the last thing that I'll say I'm mixed on is in the beginning, the opening scene, there's like a little girl who is the daughter of Sean William Scott. She just is there being dropped off with a lady, and then they never wrap up back to her at the end. And I thought, well, what was the real point of her? I mean, except for they wanted to kind of do a little bit of character development to kind of establish how these two main characters are related. And they're basically a couple on the verge of getting engaged. He has a daughter. She's hesitant about being a mom. And like, that's the only thing they really do to kind of make some sort of character to her. And then this will bring me to the negatives. So in the negatives is definitely these characters did some dumbass crap. Like, they were really like, it was beyond suspension of disbelief in some parts. So in the beginning, Sean Scott, he basically is taking her on this hike, and he hears a strange noise to investigate, and it's like, oh, why don't you go investigate the strange noise?
Who's there? Who's there? I'm calling the police.
You should never say who's there. Don't you watch scary movies? It's a death wish. You might as well just come out here to investigate a strange noise or something.
Listen, I am 2 seconds away from calling the police.
They'd never make it in time. We're out in the middle of nowhere.
Why did he go investigate this noise? Who cared about some stupid clown carousel music going on over 200 feet away at least? And he goes to investigate it, and he comes across Dolly. And like, he could have gotten away. He could have easily gotten away, and he kind of just stands there paralyzed until she, gets a hold of him. And it's like, seriously? And there were other times where our main girl, the final girl, does the same thing, even after she's been abducted by them. Like, she had many opportunities to get away or be smart. Like, there were opportunities where she could have, it says it in the premise, she gets captured. And there's plenty times where she could have hit the captor with something, hit the Dolly person with something to try and get out, to try and escape. Now, she does it sometimes, but there were other opportunities where I felt like she really was going to get away. And I thought, man, what the heck? Like, these characters, there just has to be a little bit of believability of what's going on. Put it in the negatives before we get into spoilers is, I guess they were vague about what this is all about. So like, I guess coming off of The Strangers chapter 3, realizing that why did we need these strangers explained to such great detail? Well, here I just felt like a little bit in the reverse. Like, maybe we needed just a little bit of an explanation, not an entire backstory into the childhoods, but we never knew who these characters really were, what the hell the reason why they were there, because Father talked a little bit, but he never said anything that progressed the story that much. And Mother or Dolly basically didn't talk at all. So, it wasn't like they could ask these characters and they could just turn around and say, well, because you were here, which was kind of like what it seemed like. It was because they were there, because they were just there randomly and they bump into the Dolly and they get captured.
Why are you doing this to us?
Because you were home.
So with no further ado, let's get into spoilers. I would say this movie is kind of a mixed bag. It's going to be your style, whether or not it's something you'll want to see, because it kind of is extreme, disturbing, and unsettling. So I'll put a timestamp so that you guys can flash forward to the rating if you plan on going to see this to avoid the spoilers. All right, our final girl is named Macy, and then she's dating Chase, played by Sean William Scott. And they basically, after they drop their kid off with the babysitter, they basically go out into the woods. He's going to propose to her, and they get to this spot, like it's on a cliff. And the one thing that I thought that it reminded me of was the yoga kill in A Violent Nature. I feel like they literally filmed in the same exact location, the same exact cliff, but who knows? And maybe it just looked like it. But that's the setting, right? So they're out in the woods, and all of a sudden Chase hears this weird carousel music sounding something like that you would hear out of Annabelle or The Conjuring. And he's like, oh, let me go check that out. And I thought, oh God, here we go with the dumb decisions already. And then he goes to check it out, and he comes across all these dolls on the trail. Now, they saw some of the dolls as they were getting to where they were, but then there was more dolls, like over 100 dolls, and some of them were lined up in a circle. And from the back, Dolly looks like a female in drag, dressed in, looks like a female in a Santa suit, because her clothes were all red, so it looked like a Santa outfit. But she's got like this blonde hair that kind of reminds me of something from, actually, well, not this most recent Strangers, but the Strangers back in 2008 and 2018. It seemed like one of the Strangers had blonde hair. It's giving me that vibe. And like the mask was something that was kind of like China Doll meets Leatherface. Anyhow, he comes up against this woman in a mask, and it's like, and then she's making all sorts of weird noises too. It's like, yeah, it's time for you to turn around and go back to your fiance and not worry about this freak with all the dolls in the woods. But no, he goes and taps her on the shoulder like, oh, hon, are you okay? And of course he gets attacked. And it's like he could have gotten away. And instantly Dolly picks him up and is choking him. I'm like, ooh. And I'm like, if it's a woman? But it clearly was a man in the suit, by the way, even though I feel like the character's supposed to be a woman. And then he chokes him out, he falls to the ground, and then this is where it starts getting brutal already. Like, literally, she comes with a shovel, and she breaks his legs. It somewhat reminded me of the way Dirty Bird, what the heck was her name? The girl from Misery. She hits James Caan's in the legs with the axe. Well, it's very similar what she does with the shovel, but like on his kneecap, and just like, boom, breaks his kneecap. And I'm like, ugh. I'm like, he's not, and this is fairly early on. I'm like, where's this character gonna go? I thought he was one of the main stars. Like, he's down for the count now with a broke leg like that. He ain't getting out. And then the next thing you know, even worse, this Dolly takes the shovel and jams it into his face, like into his jaw, literally cutting his mouth half open. His jaw is dangling down. I'm like, oh yeah, he's not gonna be able to make it much longer. But we'll find out that he makes it longer than you would think. Meanwhile, Macy's back, wondering where Chase went off to, so she's now going to look, and she comes up on the Dolly thing, and she's a little bit smarter than Chase, but still doesn't run away fast enough. She sees the dolls. She sees Chase all mauled, not dead, but mauled. And then she gets attacked, knocked out, and she wakes up in the house. And in the house, she's like in this bedroom, and she's on a little kiddie bed, and she hears a voice in the room next door, which sounds like an adult male. Now, at first I thought, is this Chase or is this someone else? But whoever it was sounded like they'd been there a while. And then someone else keeps saying, you have to get the key and play along, because you have to play the game until you can get the key. Play along with the Dolly until. So Dolly comes in and wants to basically make Macy her baby. Take care of baby, give baby milk, give baby pacifier, change baby's diaper. Except for Macy's not a baby. She's a full-grown woman. So she doesn't really need all this stuff done, but she's got to play along with this whole bizarre routine to try and figure out how to get the key, how to get whoever's in the next room out, and escape back to wherever her boyfriend is. And this is where it starts to get really sadistic.
Mother. What did you do to me? Knows. We gotta go. Best.
And this movie was told in chapters. I felt like too many chapters. You know, chapter 1 was Mother. I couldn't remember what chapter 2 was, but that was the shortest chapter. It was basically her getting to the house. One chapter's called Father, and then one chapter's called Goodbye, which is towards the end. But there was too many chapters. I felt like it would have been better maybe with 3 chapters. It just didn't need the chapters. So while Macy's in the house, she's really getting tormented. She gets spanked, she gets fed, she gets her diaper changed, she gets fed breast milk, and that was another scene that was a little disturbing. Dolly whips out her breast, and the special effects there were a little bad. You could tell it was very fake. She's forced to drink all this breast milk, I guess. It was disgusting. She's forced to eat this food. It was disgusting. So it started to get like queasy. So some of the gore was gore, and some of the disgust came from just gross stuff that they were doing. Finally, she gets out and she escapes from Dolly, and she finds the key, which the guy in the secret room tells her it's in the basement. She goes down to the basement, which is this giant Dolly sanctuary of more Dollys. She goes back up to save whoever mystery guest is in the room, but mystery guest seems to be part of the party, because that's when as soon as she opens the door, it flips to a chapter called Father, and then that's where we get the guy who's chained up in the secret room. It's all dark, but it's like, this is where I didn't understand, like, why was he chained up in there? They never explained it. You know, the only thing of substance that he says is, like, when he starts arguing with Dolly, is that he owns the house. So I'm like, wait a second, you own the house. Why are you locked up in your own house? And they never get into that. But Father wants to have Macy for himself. I mean, he seems like as soon as he takes care of Dolly, like, he's gonna, you know, basically sexually assault her and keep her as his love prisoner. But Father doesn't have a long scene, because he basically says he can't, I guess he's so weak because he's been chained up. No, he didn't look that weak, but he can't open the door to get out, even though they have the key. And I guess they're going to try and convince Dolly to do it, but Dolly ain't going to do anything that it doesn't want to do. All it wants to do is take care of Macy as its baby. And it ends up in this big fight, and that's once Father is out and you have Father and Dolly, that's when I really was getting Texas Chainsaw Massacre scene, because he definitely felt like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre character, along with House of a Thousand Corpses. They subdue Dolly. Macy ends up killing Father, smashing him in the face with a shovel. Or no, Dolly smashes Father in the face with shovel. Either way, Father's dead. And not before there was this whole dumb scene where Macy's trying to get the key, and she's so dumb about it, but she does eventually get it. There was a point where I felt like she could have escaped while Dolly was asleep, and she didn't. Because she wanted to go back for the wedding ring. That's right, Dolly's wearing the wedding ring. So Dolly's got the wedding ring that Chase had. So, and that keeps coming into play. If it wasn't for this dumb wedding ring, Macy really would have escaped a lot quicker. Anyhow, she finally gets out of the house, and she seems like she's on something, because she's like having these delirium moments, and all the dolls are in the woods, and she kind of passes out for a little bit. Dolly never finds her right away, but then this is where we come into contact with Special Officer Doofy, as I was calling him. This like Lone Ranger police officer. I don't even know. He looked like a Lone Ranger. I guess he was a police officer. He was talking on walkie-talkies. Kind of did remind me of that one cop character from In a Violent Nature meets Officer Doofy. Because he just was so goofy. Because literally, he's like, he asked her if she's okay. She's like, no, we need to get out of here because this crazy Dolly character's coming. And I thought, if he's been patrolling these woods, how come he doesn't know about these dolls or these crazy people in this house? And he doesn't. And then all he does is he radios into his whoever's on the other side of the radio. I guess the Rangers. He's like, oh, we got another one. Like, they've been finding bodies. And then Dolly comes and just obliterates him as she's getting into the vehicle. Dolly's killing this Ranger outside, and it was brutal. It was probably the best death in the whole thing. All the deaths are pretty gory because Daddy dies, and then now this police officer dies, and of course, unfortunately, Chase dies as well. Chase spent half this movie on the ground with his jaw half off. I don't know how he survived. That was another unrealistic part. But Dolly gets him too and basically cuts his jaw completely off. And he's dead. He's down for the count. And she kind of has a reaction to it. But this is where it started getting a little bit basic, a little rip-offy-ish. So this culminates with Final Girl Macy hitting, and it reminded me, like, she hits Dolly with the car, and it reminded me of the scene in Jeepers Creepers where Trish and, oh God, whatever, Justin Long, the boy's name, I forget, they run over the creeper, and he's like, oh no, back over it again. Like, and I'm like sitting there to have it so set up for her to back over this Dolly character again, but she never does. And she takes forever to pull off. Like, she was so slow on things. She was slow to get the car going, slow to get the Dolly ran over, and slow to leave. And I'm like, come on already. Anyhow, she did it. She kills Dolly, and she escapes. And it was kind of a very obligatory ending. Like, they didn't, a vague ending. Like, they didn't really say what happens with her. They never show her reunited with the kid, because it wasn't even her kid to begin with. She was only just a girlfriend. And the end.
Let's get out of here.
We're going to get down to business on this one because I feel like this definitely is a mixed bag. I felt like I was enjoying the story. I just, sometimes it was a little bit too queasy for me, and the stupid decisions too. So I'm going to kind of blend all my emotions together, and I'm giving Dolly a basic burger because the overall execution was fairly basic. I feel like overall this was a lower budget film. But considering with what they were probably working with, I think it was basic enough, good enough for a one-time watch. I feel like, again, if you're into extreme and disturbing stuff, because there's definitely some extreme scenes here. So Dolly, have you seen it? Put what you thought of it in the comments. It's definitely a basic burger, and I'll preface that with basic burger with extra ketchup. Mucho ketchup. Well, that's it. Please like, subscribe, tap that notification bell, and don't forget to stay scared of those crazy women obsessed with dollies who wear dolly masks and try to keep you captivated and take care of you as their baby.